here, Photo Art Pavilion. Jessica and I are on the Zoom today. I hope you guys are all having a very artful and creative day. Jessica, you want to say hello?
Hello, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I know Joanne has a robust topic up ahead, but I do want to let you guys know I've decided to start a little segment at the end. It is Photo Art Pavilion Storefront Pro Tips. So I'll be doing a little micro burst of info to help you have a better experience with the Photo Art Pavilion storefronts. But before we get to that, I'll have Joanne take it away because she does have a lot to go over. And from there, we're going to open up to a Q&A for anyone who has remaining questions. Just a reminder, keep yourself muted. And also make sure to add any kind of questions in the chat as we go along. We do kind of move fast, and it's always good to have those questions up ahead, and then we could jump into your Q&As. All right, there, let's go, Joanne.
Here we go. Here we go. All righty, so it is. We're into the selling season. We've had some really great J&J chats over the year. I think you guys are getting all warm and fuzzy with your marketing, so that's awesome. But today, what I want to talk about is the sales fundamentals that I consider, and I think we all kind of consider it to be like the boring stuff. But it's stuff that always works. Like all the gurus that are out there that are discussing marketing tips and tricks and this and that kind of zero down to the basic stuff that I'm going to share with you today. And as I've always mentioned to you, those of you that have been on these chats for several months, maybe even longer at this point, I learn an awful lot from my research for the next topic. So when I'm bringing a topic to the J&J Cafe, I'm digging in, I'm learning, and I think that enhances the entire platform from the administrative side for Jessica and I as we deliver these marketing content subjects to you, and then of course it I think trickles down into your art business as a whole. So the fundamentals, the boring stuff that we need to get doing, even though it may not be all that exciting and thrilling for us, but they do work. So first thing we want to talk about is, as you're going through the fundamentals of a sales pitch, if you will, we need to talk about, we have to have an understanding with the prospect, like the pre-call and the pre-contact. We need to have an objective of what it is that we want from them before we pick up the phone or we ring or we knock on their door or we go into their establishment. We want to do a little bit of research prior to walking into a prospect's office, and we also want to do a little research before picking up the phone and making that contact. What would the objective be? Is the objective that we want them to return a phone call to us? Is the objective that we want to get a one-on-one Zoom with them? Is the objective that you simply want to drop a flyer or your business card? What is that objective before you make contact? We don't want to be in the wing it process business. We want to be very methodical in the way we approach our prospects. So consider that as item number one, having that pre-contact planning in your purview before you start out. So let's talk also now about item two, which is the pre-buyer conversations. So what do you do when you encounter the gatekeeper or the assistant, which is I would consider to be the pre-buyer? If you're able to make a phone call or knock on a business establishment and meet face-to-face with the decision maker, the buyer, right from the get-go, awesome, go for it. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to be running into what I call the gatekeeper, the person that is not the actual decision maker and not the actual buyer. So what do we do with those people? Sometimes we're like, they're so annoying, they won't let me talk to so-and-so, and geez, I wish they would just pass my information along. Well, I think one of the most important things that we have to consider when we run into that gatekeeper or that assistant is to treat them as if they were the customer. one of the things that I think is misunderstood is that the actual buyer or the decision maker has a lot of faith in that gatekeeper to begin with, to have them at the forefront of their establishment, the first voice or the first face that someone that walks into the door or picks up a phone runs into for their company. So I think you have to treat them as if they are the customer, just as much as if they were the buyer. So if you do, they're more likely to give you that information that you're looking for, what your goals are, and they're also more receptive and more likely to uh, pick your phone call up the second time if you happen to need a follow-up phone call, or if you need to walk in the door a second time. They're more likely to give you the time of day to listen to what it is that you have to say. And even I guess the main objective is going to be that they're going to be more likely to pass your information on to the actual buyer or the actual decision maker if you treat them with respect and if you treat them as if they're the actual buyer themselves. So you get through to that gatekeeper, you get through that assistant, you get them to feel a little bit more comfortable, more relaxed, less on guard with you. And now you have to have that reason that gets past them that you need to get them to speak to the prospect, get you to speak directly to the prospect, the actual buyer, the actual decision maker. So you have to be a little bit salesy with the assistant. And what I mean by that is that they have to be able to ascertain if you, the art seller, are of any value to the boss. Okay, they're not going to pass your information along if they don't feel that this is anything that's going to be of value for the boss. So you have to be a little bit salesy, but at the same token, you have to kind of temper it down, but give them some kind of a reason as to why it is that boss, that art buyer, has to have a conversation with you directly at some point. If you're leaving a voicemail, and let's say you're making that phone call, you're getting a voice messaging system, or if you're leaving a voicemail with the actual secretary or the assistant at picking up the phone, make sure that the message includes the benefit or the result that you're looking for them to get with you. And make sure that there's a little bit of curiosity within that message that you're leaving behind. So you don't want to leave a message that talks about your products or about your services. What you want to do is you want to leave a message that talks about the results. So as an example, I jotted this one down a little bit earlier. It says, what if we left a message something like this, like how I can help your patrons have a positive experience with your company from the moment they step foot in your waiting room. So now we've created a little bit of curiosity. You, the artist, know what that positive experience is going to, how you're going to improve a positive experience for their patrons, because you're going to put beautiful artwork on their wall. They're going to have a sense of peace, serenity, etc. What comes with art. But now what we're doing is we're leaving a message that has a curiosity element to it. So they're more likely to get back to you, return the phone call, or give you a second handshake, if you will, when you come in a second time, if you leave that curiosity out there and you stay away from being overly salesy in your initial approach. You don't want to be too evasive. You don't want to be condescending. But you also want to get into an element of asking lots of questions. If you do get that one-on-one, whether it be with the gatekeeper or whether it be with the actual decision maker, you want to ask a lot of questions, because as you're having these conversations with your potential clients or new business associates, the more you learn about them, the more of a benefit that your art will be to them. So you have to be thinking along those lines as well. So ask a lot of questions. Don't be too personal with the questions that you're asking, but at the same token, make them so that they're not returning with a yes or no answer. Ask questions that they have to return some information back to you. So think about that for a minute. That's a pretty important thing. So we're going to be creating some interest, right? In the opening, whether we're talking to them directly or whether we're leaving a voice message. We want to be able to pique their curiosity. We want to be able to pique their interest in what it is that you have. We don't want to be selling. We don't sell on an introduction. Okay, that sales element comes towards the very end of the cycle. All right, we'll get to that. And you don't want to be winging it. Okay, so a lot of us get in the habit of just picking up the phone or walking in the door. You haven't done your research on the business. You haven't that your prospect is in. You haven't done your research on who might be the owner. You're just picking up the phone like, hey, can I speak to person in charge of buying art? No, that's not going to get you past the gatekeeper. That's not going to get you a second conversation. So you want to be very friendly. You want to be relaxed, and you want to be able to just ask a lot of questions, know before you go, if you will. Okay. So example, I've got another example here. So I'm calling to learn more about your company's customer experience and talk about how I can help make it better. Really? Do you think artwork can do that? I do. I do. The customer walks into a lobby of any establishment. If there is great care given to the lobbies of buildings, whether it be a dental office or an attorney's office or a hotel, the great care that's given to that initial room, the setting, the more peaceful, the more calm that it is, their customer experience from the get-go walking in the door is going to be a lot more enjoyable. So just think about that. You know, I've been to doctor's offices, and some of them are just god awful, painted with that hospital green, just ugly, and you just feel like you yourself as a patient walking in, you don't feel very energetic when you run into that experience. I've run into doctor's offices where the artwork on the wall is just horrendous. It's, out of focus, faded, the matting is terrible, etc. I mean, we know what good art is. We know what good aesthetics are. That's our job, correct? So that's a great way to think about how you can truthfully, honestly make a difference in their patrons' experience with their business. Okay, it's not just a line, it's actually truthful. So you want to get them to that point of their thinking in that vein. Okay. So we'll go back to questioning. So now we're at the phase where you know a lot about them from the outside looking in. Now that you've gotten in past the gatekeeper or you're speaking with the gatekeeper, now we want to get into what I call qualifying questions, where we're really trying to scrape down to the need. What is their need? So get more information before you give information. How can you make an effective recommendation to somebody or to some business if you have no information about them? Okay, so maybe the one question, if you have them on the phone, you could simply ask, would it be all right if I come by and look at your lobby space, your initial waiting room area, so that you could talk a little bit more intelligently about what it is that you could do to give that a better polish for their company, a better appeal. So you want to also identify, once you get to that situation, you can even ask over the phone, do you have any art pieces, any peaceful art pieces or serene scenes hanging on the walls in your waiting room, in your lobby, in your conference room? We can ask these questions ahead of time so that we can identify the need, if there's a problem, if there's any other desire that's coming out of they're going to give you this information. And believe me when I tell you, if you get friendly with that gatekeeper and you get to a point where you're having a really calm and wonderful discussion with them, they're going to say a lot. They're going to tell you an awful lot about what's going on in their day-to-day work experience with not just them and the boss, them and their other employees, co-workers, and them with the patrons coming through the door. But you want to get them to a point where they need you, and the decision of their need for you comes from them. And that the only way you're going to be able to get there is by asking a lot of questions, because they're going to deduce at some point that, oh, I understand you're on the phone, you're trying to sell me art, blah, 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 blah. But sooner or later, if you ask a lot of questions and enough of the right questions, and again, you could do this homework before you pick up the phone, some qualifying questions. If you get the questions, you get the answers to the questions that you want, then they're going to hear the same answers as they're giving you, and they're going to make that decision that there's a need for you and what it is that you have to offer to them. So think about that as well. So you want to also then get down to tailoring a recommendation. So based on those questions that you ask and the answers that you receive, you're going to get down to them saying, feeling that there's a need for what it is that you're trying to bring into their business, which is your fine art pieces. And then based on those answers and those qualifying questions, you're going to be able to tailor a recommendation. Is it going to be, oh my goodness, you need 50 art pieces in your building, or you need one? But the recommendation that you come back with might be something that would, again, settle this, bring the sales cycle to a deeper level of trust between you and the prospect. Okay. So now we want to talk about the closing, making a commitment. So a big mistake that a lot of us make is we don't ask. We just simply don't ask. If you don't ask, you're not going to get the sale. All right. So think about it. You know, what can I do for you today to get some art in your space? What is your budget? How soon do you need art in your space? You know, think of the different questions that you're going to ask that are really going to get them to have to say, well, yeah, I need it tomorrow, or I need it next week. But if you're not asking in a whatever subtle way it is that is comfortable for you and the prospect that you're working with, and you'll get a feel for what it is that they, you know, your comfort level back and forth between the two of you. But at some point, you really do have to ask for the sale. You have to ask for some sort of a commitment from them, so that you warrants you putting in more time and more effort on their behalf and your behalf. And then what you want to be able to do is you want to wrap it up. If you're getting to a point where there is a mutual understanding of you guys working together, then you want to wrap it up and you want to set up the next call. Okay, so think about that. I've had this happen to me too many times. I think I've learned from my own mistakes where, okay, everything's great. All right, take care. And the next thing you know, it's like, oh, I didn't put them on my calendar for a follow-up call or a follow-up meeting or something. And then you either have to make that awkward phone call back, say, you know, which is kind of uncomfortable, not terribly uncomfortable, but kind of uncomfortable. But before you finish with, whether it be the gatekeeper, the assistant, or the actual prospect, the actual decision maker, what you want to be able to do is have a follow-up meeting, call, whatever you want to call it, get it on the calendar, send a confirmation email or a confirmation letter, whatever your process is to them, and make sure that you stick to that appointment, be on time, etc. So those are really the main fundamentals that you need to be thinking about when you're prospecting for art buyers. All right, so I just want to give you a couple of quick qualifying questions that might come into play in case you're wondering, because for me, I was like, well, what could I possibly ask an assistant or a prospect that makes them feel that they have a need for art? So let's think about this. Have you, or how did you hear about us as you're working with them? If they're calling you, how did you hear about us? All right, so that's an important question. I like to ask that question when we get calls coming into Photo Art Pavilion and the prospects are asking us about different art pieces, or, you know, can you meet with us, et cetera, whatever. How did you hear about us? I like to know from my perspective, our perspective, Jessica's and mine, what marketing that we're doing is effective and versus not effective. So are we just spinning our wheels over at Google ads, or are we spinning our wheels with Facebook ads? Where did you hear about us? What's, you know, to make sure that your marketing dollars are being useful. For me personally, I have these little leave behind cards. I think I've shown them to you girls and guys in the past. On the back of those cards, I have a coupon code that can only be used if you have the card. If you have the card and you're buying off of that card, that leave behind card, and you're using that coupon code, I know that those leave behind cards are effective for me. Okay, so think about that, having a special coupon or something along those lines. You can ask the gatekeeper very simply, who is the decision maker? Now, P.S., go back to the beginning with what I just said earlier on. No, you should know the answer to that question if you can get down to it. I mean, there are services where, I mean, there's so much information on the internet. So if it's ABC Dentistry Company on Main Street, you should be able to find who the actual owner is and who the decision maker is prior to even asking that question. But it's a good question to ask in any regard, because they may have one person listed on the business as the owner, and it might be somebody else, it's the manager who's actually the decision maker. So you want to get down to that. So here's another question. If you're just on the phone and not able to get into the space itself, ask them to describe the feeling of the lobby and the space. So again, this is not a yes or a no question. So you could just simply say, can you do me a favor? Can you describe to me over the phone what the feel is when someone is sitting in your waiting room or sitting in your lobby? Just see what they come back with. They may going to give you a ton of information in that question alone. Ask them if you have the decision maker on the phone or face to face, what is their budget? Is their budget $100? And then is it worth your time, or is their budget $1,000? You know, what is the budget? It's a good question to ask. And I don't think it's an unfair question to ask. And I don't think it's too personal, because if you get them to a point where they are actually shaking their head and going, yeah, art would be a nice thing in this space, but now you can say, well, what's your budget? What would you be comfortable spending? And then we can meet them where they are in the cycle, okay, in the buying cycle. And then another question I think is a good one. Let's say you can't get past the gatekeeper or whoever. What's the best way to communicate going forward? Some people might be interested in getting that phone call. Oh, give me a call next week. Or some people might be just, oh, send me an email. Okay, so just think about that. You want to make your prospect be comfortable with you, not the other way around. You're going to be comfortable with them once they get to the point of saying, hey, yeah, I'm interested in buying some art. You're going to be comfortable real quick, but you want them to be comfortable with you. So you want it fit into their the things that make them feel good and the things that make them want to stay in contact and communication with you. So the other question you can ask is, how soon do you need the art if they're moving in that direction? And when do you plan on making a decision is another good question. So these are qualifying questions. They're all over the place as far as in the cycle of the prospecting cycle. But I think we want to get to a point where we become good interviewers of the potential prospect. Whether you're walking straight into a door or whether you're picking up the phone, there are ways to sell without being salesy. We want to be able to have a relationship, a comfort level with them to us, and vice versa. Okay, if there's no comfort between you and them, then most likely there's not going to be a sale. So friendly, making people feel very good about having a conversation with you, and making them also feel that what it is that you are looking to introduce into their business world, their lobbies, their waiting rooms, etc., that is something that they need. And they may not know that they need it until you bring it to their attention that people that are sitting in your waiting room, you want them to be cheerful, you want them to be happy, you want them to feel warm and fuzzy before they come in and you put the dentist drill in their mouth. So, think about it in that vein. Okay. So I am going to pass the baton over to Jessica. I know you guys are going to have a lot of questions with this topic, because it was, I did a lot of just verbalizing, and I don't know how. I hope you were able to take good notes, but if not, feel free. We're going to get to the Q&A shortly. So Jessica is going to do a quick little presentation on PAP storefront pro tips for you guys and gals. So Jess, go ahead and take it away.
Excellent. Thank you, Joanne, for all that information. That was really good and useful blips of questions and so on. You can use even in social media land as well, you know, if you're really communicating back and forth with somebody. But anywho, all right. So today, Photo Art Pavilion storefront pro tip. I've had quite a few different Photo Art Pavilion art photographers contact me or ask me directly in regards to the keywords on the site itself. What do you put in there? What kind of words? Can I put phrases in? Can I do hashtags? What does it do? So I figure I take a few minutes to kind of really dig into this. And basically the keyword box on all of the images that you have in your Photo Art Pavilion storefront is able to have a further reach. Now, those keywords are picked up on our website when someone is doing a search on the site itself, and also goes beyond into the search engines. So this information that you put with your image is going to hold some relevance as far as how it's being found. So for an example, let's say I have a black and white image of a beach, a shoreline that I took in Georgia. So some of the key words, which is a simple word that describes the scene. So beach, bird, Georgia, waves. So I would put those words in, a comma after each one, and then that would be entered in as an individual keyword. Now, besides just a simple keyword, we can also add key phrases. So that's going to be, 2 or more words that create a overall idea. So maybe beach decor, black and white, Georgia seascape, and so on. And you're going to use these different words and key phrases that hold relevance within the scene. So descriptive words, things that you think someone may search for when finding an image like yours. Now, hashtags. We can also utilize hashtags in the keyword section on the site itself. So for an example, with this image of a black and white seascape taken in Georgia, we could do hashtag coastal decor, all as one word, basically, no spaces in between. Once you put in hashtag coastal decor, you'd use a comma, and then that's entered into the keyword field. You can also do like hashtag beachscapes, hashtag Georgia, hashtag art collector. Now, a hashtag can be a word or a phrase. Now, again, with the hashtags, you should probably do some research to see what is relative and what actually has a following. By just creating your own hashtags doesn't mean that people are going to see it. So you can always utilize Google and do a quick search for either location, subject matter, and so on. So let's say for this case, do Georgia seascape and then the word hashtag. And there's going to be websites that come up and basically give you the relative hashtags that can work for what that search is. And this way you can utilize these elements that will help drive more eyeballs to your artwork. Because remember, every image basically stands on its own. It has its own page itself, right? Let's say, I want to say HTML, but it's not HTML. It's a PHP page. So it's an individual page on the website, and that can drive traffic as long as it's basically set up with the right words to associate the right people or buyers to it.
From Jessica and myself, we want to wish you all a very, very happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your time with your friends and your families, and be grateful for all that we have.
And we are grateful for all of you and everyone that we've been able to connect with and grow with over time. We're doing this, everything we do is for you guys. So thank you. And
it was a nice session today. Thanks, guys and gals. Love you all. Have a great holiday.
Thank you.
bye.
Thank you. Happy
Bye.
holidays.
Have a nice holiday.
Good night, guys. Take
Peace
care.
and love.
You too. Thank you.